Welcome, true believers, to the Deep Dive. Today we are strapping on the red and yellow, tearing off the iconic shirt, and diving headfirst into the colossal, complicated world of one of the most recognizable and now departed figures in American pop culture history. Terry Gene Bollea, known professionally and globally as Hulk Hogan, 1953-2025.
It's truly, almost impossible to overstate the magnitude of this figure, professionally, culturally. It's huge. Our source material is exhaustive. It really chronicles a life filled with these monumental career highs, multiple world championships across different companies, global recognition far beyond wrestling,
Right.
but also a life just packed with legal drama, really devastating health issues, profound personal controversies, and, well, ultimately a death that brought out this really complicated mixed public reaction.
That mixed reaction is exactly why we're here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our mission for you, the listener, is to really unpack the entire phenomenon of Hulkamania. We need to look at how he basically engineered the 1980s wrestling boom, how he defined that all-American hero archetype for a whole generation, and then contrast that, carefully crafted mythology with the later deeply troubling controversies, especially that racism scandal that led people to say his reputation was, well, permanently tarnished.
The central theme here, I think, is contradiction. You've got, on one hand, wrestling historian Dave Meltzer offering, the ultimate professional take. Hogan sold more tickets to wrestling shows than any man who ever lived. Just think about that.
Biggest draw ever, arguably.
Biggest draw ever. But that undeniable professional legacy exists right alongside what we learned about the man behind the curtain, leading to that really mixed reaction when he died in July 2025 at 71. We need to figure out how both of those truths can exist side by side in one person's legacy.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the start. How does Terry Gene Bollea, this guy born in Augusta, Georgia, become a global icon? Especially given, his background wasn't really wrestling focused at first, was it?
Well, his roots are interesting for the whole American persona. Born in Augusta, 53, but the family moved to Port Tampa, Florida when he was just, a year and a half old. That became home.
Okay.
And his heritage is pretty diverse, actually. Italian, Panamanian, Scottish, French. His paternal grandfather was from Italy. It's quite a mix for the guy who'd become the ultimate, American muscle fantasy.
And what's fascinating, like you said, is that his first dream wasn't the ring at all. He was aiming for the stage, right? Music.
That's absolutely right. He was a decent pitcher in Little League, apparently, but music was the real obsession early on. He spent about 10 years playing fretless bass guitar in different Florida bands. Ruckus was one in 1976.
Wow, 10 years.
Yeah, he was serious enough that he actually dropped out of the University of South Florida because his band gigs were taking up too much time. Music was the path, initially.
So what triggers the change? What pulls him from rock and roll towards professional wrestling?
The light bulb moment, apparently, came when he was 16. He was going to wrestling shows at the Pampa Sportatorium, loved Dusty Rhodes, like everyone back then.
Sure.
But the real catalyst, the guy who really changed his whole direction, was superstar Billy Graham. Hogan saw Graham's physique, this incredible, almost inhuman look, as Hogan put it, and just became obsessed with matching it.
So he hits the weights.
Hits the weights hard at Hector's gym in Tampa Bay. And that gym, well, it was a known hangout for pro wrestlers. Jack and Gerald Briscoe were there.
Ah, Briscoe brothers. And they see this huge kid lifting weights.
They see the potential, yeah. And they connect him with the legendary trainer Hiro Matsuda. And that story, the first training session, it's the definition of a trial by fire.
Oh, yeah. Matsuda was notoriously tough, wasn't he? Breaking legs.
Exactly. Matsuda ran the training for Championship Wrestling from Florida, CWF. Huge territory. And his training wasn't just tough, it was brutal. The sources are clear. In that first session, Matsuda deliberately broke Hogan's leg. It was an initiation, a test.
That's insane. Most people would just quit right there. Yeah. How did Hogan even come back from that?
Well, it says a lot about his drive, doesn't it? He spent 10 weeks recovering, rehabbing. You'd think he'd go back to the bass guitar.
Right.
But no, he comes back to training, totally serious. And the story goes, when Matsuda tried to break his other leg, Hogan blocked him, signaled he was in, he was committed, no matter how grueling it was.
Wow, that's a moment. So he starts wrestling professionally in 77. What were those early names before he became the Hulk?
He debuted unmasked in CWF August 77, did a brief stint under a hood as the Super Destroyer. That was a gimmick someone else had used.
Okay.
But the names that kind of stuck for a bit were Terry Boulder, especially when he teamed up with Ed Leslie future Brutus Beefcake, as the Boulder Brothers down in Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling in Alabama around 78. He also used Sterling Golden for a while.
So Terry Boulder.
Yeah.
Then when does the Hulk part come in? How does that connect to the comic book?
That defining moment happens in Memphis, wrestling for Jerry Jarrett's CWA. He's on a local talk show, and who else is on the show but Lou Ferrigno?
The actual TV Incredible Hulk?
The actual TV Hulk. And the host, maybe joking, maybe not, points out that Hogan, already 6'7", nearly 300 pounds, those huge arms completely dwarfs Ferrigno.
Like he's the real Hulk.
Precisely. And it was apparently Mary Jarrett, the promoter's wife, who suggested the nickname. So he starts wrestling as Terry the Hulk Boulder. The identity clicked. It was pure, accidental branding genius based entirely on his sheer size.
Okay, moving into the late 70s, early 80s, this sets him up for the big time. Man, it's kind of shocking. He starts his WWF run not as the hero, but as a villain.
Oh yeah, totally a heel. When he first joined the World Wrestling Federation WWF back then in 1979, Vince McMahon Sr. saw the look, the charisma. Terry Funk might have recommended him.
And McMahon Sr. had a specific idea for the look, didn't he? Wanted him to be Irish.
That was the pitch. Gave him the last name Hogan, wanted him to dye his hair red. Hogan's hair was already thinning, apparently, so he refused. Quipped, "I'll be a blonde Irishman."
Ah.
So he debuts as this monster heel, managed by the great, classy Freddie Blassie. This is when he had those first big encounters with Andre the Giant. He actually body-slammed Andre at Showdown at Shea in 1980, which was a huge deal even then, even as a heel, signaled something big was coming.
But that first WWF run gets cut short. And weirdly, this leads to him becoming an even bigger star. The Rocky Thurs movie role.
That changed everything, yeah. 1982. He takes the role of Thunderlips, the wrestler who fights Rocky. But Vince McMahon Sr., the father, had this really strict old-school rule. No mixing wrestling with outside stuff like movies.
So McMahon fires him.
Releases him from his WWF contract, yeah. McMahon Sr. just didn't see the value in that kind of crossover.
Which, ironically, turned out to be the best possible thing for Hogan's career.
Oh, a massive blessing in disguise. It let him immediately cash in on that movie fame by joining Vern Gagne's American Wrestling Association, the AWA, which was a huge, respected territory. And crucially, it freed him up to keep doing his really successful tours in Japan.
Right, let's talk about Japan first. He wasn't just touring there, he was a different kind of wrestler entirely. Ichiban.
Japan was absolutely critical for him, especially between 1980 and 1985. In New Japan Pro Wrestling, NJPW, they called him Ichiban #1. And his style there, completely different, way more technical, lots of submissions, stiff strikes, more like a fighter.
Not the leg drop finish.
No, his finisher in Japan was the Axe Bomber. It's this really stiff, crooked arm lariat. They treated it like a knockout blow over there. Much more serious presentation.
And he had major success there too, right? Like championship level.
Groundbreaking success. In 1983, he beat the legendary Antonio Inoki by knockout to win the very first International Wrestling Grand Prix, the IWGP tournament. He became the first IWGP heavyweight champion, the original version, so he was a legitimate top star in two completely different wrestling worlds at the same time.
Incredible. Okay, back in the U.S., in the AWA, this is where the hero persona really takes off. He flips from heel to huge fan favorite pretty fast.
Yeah, the Rocky III exposure plus his natural charisma just made the villain thing impossible to maintain. He turned face, feuded with the Heenan family, and most importantly, kept challenging Nick Bockwinkel, the AWA world champ.
And this is where Hulkamania, as a phrase, officially gets coined, even before he wins the WWF title.
That's right. It's solidified on May 15th, 1982. He's on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, writing that movie fame, and he declares, "Hulkamania is running wild." The term stuck.
So if he's that popular, drawing huge crowds, why didn't Vern Gagne, the boss of AWA, put the world title on him? This feels like a huge turning point in wrestling history.
It is the turning point. Gagne was pure old school. He valued traditional technical wrestling above all else. He saw Hogan's act, the posing, the hulking up, the focus on entertainment as, well, kind of frivolous, almost insulting to the sport, in his view.
But there was more to it than just style, wasn't there? Money.
Oh, absolutely. The Japan money was key. Hogan was making serious bank in NJPW, way more than AWA guys usually made on the side. Gagne demanded a majority share of Hogan's Japan earnings to make him champion.
Wow, majority.
Yeah. Hogan apparently offered 50-50, trying to meet him halfway. Gagne refused. He just wouldn't give the belt to Hogan. Even when Hogan pinned Bockwinkel at the Super Sunday show in '83, they reversed the decision on a technicality. Gagne just couldn't bet his company on an entertainer, even when packing the arenas.
And Gagne's refusal basically opened the door wide open for his biggest competitor.
It created the biggest opportunity in wrestling history. Vince McMahon Jr., who'd bought the WWF from his dad and was planning this aggressive national expansion, saw exactly what Gagne missed. Hogan wasn't just popular, he was the superstar engine McMahon needed to drive a national entertainment-based wrestling boom.
So McMahon Jr. flies out to Minneapolis.
Visits Hogan, yeah, and offers him the one thing Gagne wouldn't, the WWF Heavyweight Championship. Hogan takes the deal. Abruptly resigns from the AWA via telegram in November '83. The story is, Gagne thought the telegram was a joke at first, didn't realize he'd just lost the guy who would define the next decade.
Unbelievable. And just like that, we launch into Section 3, the pop culture explosion. Hogan returns to WWF, and it's like flicking a switch. Wrestler to national brand, instantly.
The transformation was total. He comes back December '83. The official face turn happens right before New Year's, January 7th, '84. He saves Bob Backlund from the Wild Samoans. The crowd goes absolutely nuts.
And then, less than 3 weeks later, the title change that really kicks off the golden age.
January 23rd, 1984. Madison Square Garden. He beats the Iron Sheik for his first WWF World Heavyweight title. And that moment, it's not just the win. It's because Hogan becomes the first guy in WWF to escape the Iron Sheik's camel clutch. Gorilla Monsoon on commentary yells, "Hulkamania is here!" And it was.
What was it about Hulkamania that made it so powerful? It wasn't just wrestling. It felt like a movement.
It was pure, distilled, aspirational American idealism, packaged perfectly for kids and families. Hogan became the face of this bright, colorful, cartoonish era of WWF. His fans weren't just fans, they were Hulkamaniacs.
And the message was simple, right? The demandments.
So simple, so direct, so moralistic. Initially, the 3 demandments: train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Later, they added the crucial 4th one, believe in yourself, which became really central around his feud with Earthquake in 1990.
And the matches themselves had this predictable but incredibly effective formula.
Oh yeah, reliable theater. You knew it was coming, and you loved it. Hogan gets beaten down, looks totally finished. Then, fueled by the crowd noise, the Hulkamaniacs roaring, he starts to Hulk.
The shaking, the no-selling.
Exactly. Suddenly impervious to pain. Then the sequence. Point to the sky, punches, Irish whip, big boot, and boom, the running leg drop for the win. The narrative was simple. Good triumphs over evil as long as you believe.
Now, we absolutely have to talk about this bizarre legal footnote that underpinned everything. The deal with Marvel Comics over the name Hulk. This explains so much about the branding.
It's a fascinating bit of business history, yeah. Because of the obvious connection to the Incredible Hulk, Titan Sports WWF's parent company Marvel Comics, and Hogan himself signed this detailed legal agreement back in '84. It let Hogan use the name, but Marvel actually owned the trademarks for Hulk Hogan, Hulkster, and Hulkamania for 20 years.
Wait, so WWF was essentially renting the name, and they had rules.
Pretty much. They were legally forbidden from ever calling him the Incredible Hulk, or even just Hulk on its own, outside of the specific trademark names. And the most visually important rule, no purple and green, the classic Incredible Hulk colors, were banned.
That's why he's red and yellow. It was a legal necessity.
Directly because of that agreement, red and yellow became his signature look because the Hulk's colors were off limits.
And Marvel got paid for this, obviously.
Oh, yeah. They got a piece of the action. 0.9% of merchandise revenue, $100 for every single match he wrestled, and 10% of other earnings under the name. It shows you the kind of money involved just in maintaining that brand identity during his peak years.
Incredible. Just shows how calculated everything was beneath the surface. Didn't Marvel even poke fun at this later in a comic?
They did. There's a panel in a 1988 comic, Marvel Comics Presents, where the actual Incredible Hulk throws a wrestler who looks exactly like Hogan through a roof, complaining the guy picked the wrong name. A little inside joke about the legal history.
Huh. Okay, back in the ring, Hogan is the face of the Rock and Wrestling Connection on MTV, the engine of WrestleMania. He main evented 8 of the first 9. But WrestleMania 3rd in '87, that feels like the absolute peak.
Well, WrestleMania 3rd was more than a wrestling show. It was a cultural event. Hogan defending against Andre the Giant, who was billed as undefeated for 15 years in the WWF, Pontiac Silverdome, over 93,000 people packed in there.
And the slam?
The body slam on the 520-pound Andre, followed by the leg drop. That image is arguably the single most defining wrestling image of the entire 1980s. It broke through into the mainstream like nothing before it.
And his visibility outside wrestling just exploded.
He was everywhere. Most requested celebrity for the Make-A-Wish Foundation in the 80s. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, still the only pro wrestler to do that as of 2013. Co-hosted Saturday Night Live, had his own cartoon, Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, and the business numbers were staggering. AT&T reported his 900 number hotline was the biggest 900 number in the entire country from 91 to 93. Think about that level of fan engagement.
Moving into 88, we get maybe the biggest storyline of the whole era, the Mega Powers. But it starts with Hogan losing the title in that crazy, controversial way.
Yeah, the loss to Andre was pure storyline gold, orchestrated by Ted DiBiase. It had the evil twin referee Angle Earl Hebner replacing his brother Dave. Just brilliant chaos. WWF President Jack Tunney had to vacate the title because DiBiase tried to buy it from Andre.
And that sets up the alliance with Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth.
The Mega Powers, an absolute dream team, biggest force in wrestling. But the storyline genius was planting the seeds of doubt almost immediately. Savage's paranoia and jealousy over Hogan and Elizabeth.
And the breakup angle at the main event, too, was just perfect television drama.
Prime-time soap opera with muscles. During a tag match, Savage accidentally knocks Elizabeth down. Hogan, the hero, carries her backstage for medical help, leaving Savage alone.
Abandoning him.
In Savage's eyes, yes. When Hogan returns, Savage just snaps, slaps him, turns heel. Ultimate betrayal. Led straight to Hogan beating Savage at WrestleMania V to win his second WWF title. Masterful storytelling.
He keeps rolling through the early 90s. There's the No Holds Barred movie and the Zeus feud that came out of it. And he sets a Royal Rumble record, too.
First guy ever to win back-to-back Royal Rumbles, 1990 and 1991. But, the first little sign that maybe his absolute dominance was starting to crack was the title loss to the Ultimate Warrior, WrestleMania the 6th.
Right. Passing the torch. Sort of.
Sort of. Then things got messy with the title again in late 91. The hot potatoing with The Undertaker and Ric Flair getting involved.
He wins it, loses it, wins it back super fast.
Loses it to Undertaker at Survivor Series, thanks to Flair. Wins it back 6 days later at This Tuesday in Texas, again with controversy. Both wins were tainted. So President Tunney declared the title vacant again, setting up the 92 Royal Rumble to crown a new undisputed champion.
And all this turbulence is happening right when the steroid scandal is really starting to hit the news big time.
The timing couldn't have been worse. Reports were surfacing everywhere about Dr. George Zahorian, the Pennsylvania Athletic Commission doctor, allegedly selling steroids to WWF wrestlers. Hogan was the biggest name caught up in those rumors. With all the media heat and negativity, Hogan kind of quietly stepped away from the ring in late 92.
But he had one more run in 93, teaming with Brutus Beefcake again at WrestleMania IX. But that main event, oh boy.
Yeah.
People still complain about that finish.
It's probably one of the most criticized Mania endings ever, yeah, because it felt like it totally undercut Bret Hart, who was supposed to be the next guy. Bret loses the title to Yokozuna. Then, literally moments later, Hogan runs out, has an impromptu match, and pins Yoko to win his 5th WWF title.
Why? What was the thinking there? Was that even the plan?
Well, the reports, pretty strong reports, say Hogan used his backstage clout to change the finish on the spot. He wanted to be champion for a big upcoming international tour, which was basically his farewell tour. He essentially inserted himself into the main event, using his political power, completely overshadowing Bret's intended moment.
So that 5th reign wasn't built to last then?
Not at all. Very short. He lost the title right back to Yokozuna at King of the Ring that June. And the finish there was theatrical too. Hogan got blinded by a fireball from a photographer who turned out to be Harvey Whippleman in disguise.
Always theatrical.
Always. He finished up the house show tour for a couple more months, then just sat out the rest of his contract, left WWF for good at the end of 93. Though, interestingly, he did do one last NJPW run right before leaving WWF, beat the Great Muta in May 93. Still a huge draw internationally.
That exit completely resets the board, doesn't it? And sets up Section 4, the Monday Night Wars, and maybe the single greatest heel turn in modern wrestling history.
His move to World Championship Wrestling, WCW, in 1994 was a massive, game-changing move by Eric Bischoff. WCW was gearing up for war with WWF. Hogan signs this huge contract at a ceremony at Disney MGM Studios in June 94. Jimmy Hart comes with him as manager, and boom, first night in, bash at the beach, he beats Ric Flair for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship.
And just having Hogan there immediately puts WCW on a different level promotionally and financially.
Oh, absolutely. His name alone guaranteed mainstream media attention. Pay-per-view buys went up instantly. It gave WCW the credibility and the firepower they needed to launch Monday Nitro and really go head-to-head. He was the centerpiece, holding that WCW title for 469 days, still the longest reign for that specific belt. Defended against guys like The Butcher, Vader. He headlined the very first Nitro in September 95. The war was on.
But the Hulkamania act, the red and yellow, it started to feel a bit dated, right? Especially as wrestling was getting edgier. Then came 1996, a total masterstroke.
Probably the single most important creative pivot of his entire career. Bash at the Beach 96, Hogan does the unthinkable, turns heel for the first time in, almost 15 years. He attacks Randy Savage, aligns himself with the Outsiders Hall and Nash, who were pretending to invade from the WWF.
And forms the New World Order. Name it hell. That promo he cut.
Dropped the red and yellow, went black and white, rebranded himself as Hollywood Hulk Hogan. This arrogant, cool, villainous persona just injected this incredible energy back into his career, and it was absolutely the driving force behind Nitro's success, helping WCW dominate the ratings war for 83 straight weeks. He won his second WCW title from the Giant soon after, and the NWO became a legit cultural phenomenon.
The NWO basically made WCW, but the internal politics and the group getting too big eventually kind of poisoned it, didn't it? Leading to some truly awful booking.
That's the irony, isn't it? Once the NWO got bloated, split into factions, NWO Hollywood for Hogan, NWO Wolfpack for Nash, the creative control issues and backstage politics just started killing the product. And the absolute low point, the moment that arguably killed WCW's momentum for good, was January 1999, the finger poke of doom.
Explain the finger poke of doom. Why was it so bad?
Okay, so Hogan is challenging Kevin Nash for the WCW title. Nash is supposed to be this dominant champion. The match starts, and instead of fighting, Hogan just pokes Nash in the chest with his finger.
Just pokes him.
Just pokes him. And Nash dramatically falls down like he's been shot. Hogan covers him, 1, 2, 3, wins the title. The whole thing made a complete mockery of the championship, the storylines, everything. Wrestling historians point to that exact moment as a huge reason why WCW's ratings started to tank and never recovered. Just disastrous booking.
And his exit from WCW was just as chaotic, right? That Bash at the Beach 2000 incident with Vince Russo sounds completely surreal.
Oh, it was a spectacular train wreck. Hogan was supposed to fight Jeff Jarrett for the title, but Hogan and the head writer, Vince Russo, were clashing massively over creative direction that day. So the match happens, and it turns into this weird, disputed work shoot, trying to look real but maybe scripted. Jarrett just lies down in the ring for Hogan. Hogan pins him easily.
Okay. Strange, but maybe part of the plan.
Well, then it went off the rails. Hogan gets on the mic after the win and starts blasting Russo and the company for the stupid finish. So Russo storms out, grabs a mic, and basically goes nuclear. He completely exposes Hogan's creative control clause in his contract, calls Hogan a piece of shit, and declares fans will never see him in WCW again.
Wow. So Hogan sued.
Yeah, claimed Russo turned a work into a real firing, filed a big defamation lawsuit against WCW. It was eventually dismissed, but it was just this incredibly messy, unprofessional, embarrassing end to his time there. And this was just months before WCW folded and got bought by WWF.
Which brings us to Section 5. And surprisingly, Hogan returns to the WWF, now renamed WWE, in 2002.
The power of nostalgia, huh?
Overwhelming nostalgia. He came back as part of the original NWO lineup, Hall, Nash. Hogan brought in his heels. They immediately attacked The Rock at No Way Out 2002 to set up that huge Hogan versus Rock match at WrestleMania X8.
And that match is famous because the crowd completely flipped the script, right? They cheered Hogan, the supposed heel. Toronto went insane for Hogan. They booed The Rock, the biggest babyface in the company, chanting, "Hogan, Hogan," all match long. The reaction was so organic, so undeniable. Hogan, to his credit, read the room perfectly. After he lost the match, he shook The Rock's hand, turned face on the spot, basically ditching the NWO right there because the crowd demanded it.
A masterclass in connecting with the audience. Yeah. And he rode that wave right back to the top.
Straight back. Got drafted to SmackDown, beat Triple H at Backlash 2002 to win the undisputed WWF Championship, his 6th reign. And that's actually pretty historic because he won it in May 2002, making him the last WWF champion before the company officially changed its name to WWE after that lawsuit with the World Wildlife Fund.
Right, the panda people.
Exactly.
But that run didn't last long either. And it ended, again, with backstage issues and the Mr. America gimmick.
Yeah, after he lost the title to Undertaker, things got tense again. Creative frustrations, arguments over payoffs. Hogan felt he wasn't getting paid what he was worth as a draw. Vince McMahon reportedly wanted him out. So in 2003, Hogan comes back under a mask as Mr. America.
Which was just blatantly Hogan in a mask, right? Way to stick it to
So
Vince.
totally transparent. Star-Spangled Banner gear, using all Hogan's mannerisms. It was basically comedy designed to annoy McMahon while fulfilling his contract. McMahon spent weeks on TV trying to prove it was Hogan. Eventually, Hogan quit for real over the frustrations, and McMahon fired the Mr. America character on SmackDown by airing footage of him taking the mask off. Another weird ending.
Despite the messy exits, WWE always seemed to bring him back eventually. Hall of Fame in 2005.
Inducted by Stallone, yeah. Came back sporadically, beat Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam '05 in a match that gave some criticism because Hogan reportedly insisted on winning and looking dominant. But his longest stint away from WWE after that was his run with TNA.
Right, total non-stop action wrestling. He joined TNA in late 2009, brought Bischoff with him, had a big executive role.
The idea was to use his star power to boost TNA's profile. It got the media attention, definitely, but the creative direction under them was often seen as overly complicated, trying to recreate the NWO magic. The big angle was him turning heel again at Bound for Glory 2010, forming the Immortal Stable. They had this storyline where they tricked Dixie Carter into signing over control of the company.
Always with the power plays.
Yeah.
Did he turn face again there, too?
Yep. Lost control back to Sting in 2011, turned face. His last matches were actually on a TNA UK tour in early 2012. His final big storyline was this kind of soap opera thing involving his daughter Brooke and Bully Ray, who turned out to be the leader of the Aces and Eights biker gang faction. Critics felt it focused too much on the drama, not enough on wrestling. Hogan left TNA when his contract ran out in October 2013.
Then it's back to WWE again in 2014, hosted WrestleMania XXX, got inducted into the Hall of Fame again in 2020 with the NWO, but his very last appearance in a wrestling context was super recent and kind of awkward.
It was a really strange final moment, yeah. January 6, 2025, the big debut of Raw on Netflix. Hogan comes out with Jimmy Hart, cuts a promo to plug his new beer brand, Real American Beer.
And the crowd reaction.
Overwhelmingly negative, loud boos from the live audience. It got a ton of media coverage, this icon getting booed so heavily on his return. Just a really bizarre, kind of sad final capstone to his whole in-ring related career.
Okay, let's shift gears into Section 6, Life Beyond the Ropes, his business ventures, media appearances. It's an unbelievable mixed bag, isn't it? Sometimes huge fame, sometimes spectacular failure.
His entrepreneurial track record is something else. Star power definitely didn't always equal business success. Remember Pastamania?
Vaguely. Mall of America.
Yeah, 1995. Dishes like Hulkies and Hulkaroos. It lasted less than a year. Great concept, maybe. Execution, not so much.
And he endorsed tons of products, too, some more successful than others.
Oh, yeah. The Hulk Hogan Thunder Mixer, Hogan energy drinks, Hulkster burgers, microwavable burgers at Walmart. And then there was the Hulk Hogan Ultimate Grill.
One that caught fire.
Had to be recalled as a fire hazard in 2008, yeah. The ultimate irony, right? The all-American hero selling a grill that might burn your house down kind of sums up the contradictions.
Even late in life, he was still launching stuff. A new wrestling promotion just before he passed.
April 2025, co-founded Real American Freestyle Wrestling. He was listed as commissioner. Seemed like he wanted creative control right to the end. And, of course, the Real American Beer he was plugging on Raw.
Let's talk media. Acting was huge for his mainstream fame, starting with Rocky III.
Thunder Lips launched him outside wrestling, no doubt. Then he had that run of family movies in the early 90s, No Holds Barred, Suburban Commando, Mr. Nanny. Made him a recognizable name in households that didn't watch wrestling. Even had his own TV show, Thunder in Paradise, in 94.
Then came reality TV, Hogan Knows Best, which ironically kind of opened the door to the later scandals by putting his private life out there.
Definitely. Hogan Knows Best started in 2005, then the spin-off Brooke Knows Best. Gave people this unprecedented look into his family life, which later became Exhibit A in legal battles. He also hosted the American Gladiators reboot in 2008.
Now, we need to touch on something the sources mentioned, this idea of self-mythologizing. Basically, claims he made over the years that were maybe not entirely factual.
And this is key to understanding the difference between the character and the man. The list of disputed claims is pretty long. Like, he often said Elvis was a huge fan, but Elvis died in 1977 before Hogan really hit it big.
Right, and didn't he claim he wrestled like 400 days a year?
Yeah, said he did it by crossing time zones. Physically impossible, obviously. Then there were the claims about being offered huge movie roles, like the lead in The Wrestler, or being asked to play bass for Metallica or the Rolling Stones.
And those were denied by the people involved.
Flat out denied. James Hetfield from Metallica said nope. Darren Aronofsky, director of The Wrestler, said Hogan was never considered. Even the story about being offered the George Foreman grill endorsement before Foreman's own son said Hogan wasn't even in the running. It seems like the line between the Hogan persona and Terry Bollea blurred completely, maybe even for himself.
We see a similar kind of shifting in his political endorsements over the years, too. Very contradictory for the real American guy.
It's a wild ride politically. Endorsed Barack Obama back in 2008. Then, in 2011, he publicly took back the endorsement because Obama used his Real American theme song at the White House Correspondents' Dinner without asking. Hogan apparently took that personally.
So he swings right after that.
Supported Mitt Romney in 2012. By 2015, he was saying he wanted to be Donald Trump's running mate for VP, and he formally endorsed Trump at the 2024 Republican National Convention, even spoke at that huge MSG rally. So yeah, his political identity shifted quite a bit, seemingly based on who was hot or maybe perceived slights.
All right, let's dive into Section 7. This is the heart of the complicated legacy, the major controversies that really shadowed his later years, starting with the legal stuff from the 80s and 90s.
The first big crack in the armor, publicly, was that 1994 Vince McMahon steroid trial. Hogan was the prosecution's star witness, got immunity to testify, and under oath, he admitted he'd been using anabolic steroids regularly since 1976. Said it was to keep up his size.
That must have just destroyed the vitamins message. What was the fallout?
Huge damage to the clean-cut hero persona. Even though he testified McMahon didn't sell him steroids or order him to take them, the admission itself, the face of the WWF admitting long-term steroid use, shattered that image. Massive media scrutiny followed, not just on Hogan, but the whole industry. It really tainted the eat your vitamins message for a lot of fans who grew up with it.
And didn't his testimony also reveal he'd worked against union efforts among wrestlers?
Yes. He admitted under oath that he and King Kong Bundy had tipped off Vince McMahon about Jesse Ventura trying to organize wrestlers back in 1986. So the real American hero was actively undermining efforts for workers' rights. That drew a lot of criticism. Hogan later tried to downplay it, saying McMahon already knew, but the contradiction is stark.
There was another legal issue, too, less known maybe, but serious, the Richard Belzer incident in '85.
Ah, yeah, on Belzer's talk show, Hot Properties. Belzer asked Hogan to demonstrate a wrestling move. Hogan put him in a front chin lock, a kind of guillotine choke. The problem was he held it too long and Belzer actually passed out.
Seriously, passed out on live TV.
Yeah. When Hogan let go, Belzer just collapsed, hit his head hard on the floor, needed stitches, brief hospitalization.
It's lawsuit.
Big one. Belzer sued for $5 million. They eventually settled out of court, reportedly for around $400,000, split between Hogan and McMahon. It was a stark reminder of the dangers when performance blurs with reality. Very costly mistake.
But the absolute lowest point, the thing that really defined his later public image, was the Gawker lawsuit and the racism scandal that came out of it in 2015.
Professionally, that was catastrophic. It started back in 2012 when the website Gawker published a short clip of a sex tape. It was filmed way back in 2007, showing Hogan with Heather Clem, who was married to radio host Bubba the Love Sponge at the time. Hogan sued Gawker for a $100 million invasion of privacy, defamation, huge legal battle.
And this wasn't just Hogan suing, right? There was big money behind him.
That's crucial. Billionaire Peter Thiel secretly bankrolled Hogan's lawsuit. Thiel had his own grudge against Gawker. Hogan's lawyers focused heavily on the privacy invasion argument, and they won big. A jury awarded Hogan $115 million in 2016. That verdict bankrupted Gawker, forced them to shut down. Though the final settlement was lowered to $31 million, the case set some really controversial precedents about celebrity privacy.
But winning the lawsuit became almost irrelevant because of what was actually on the tape.
Exactly. In July 2015, the National Enquirer and Radar Online got hold of transcripts from the tape and published parts containing this horrific anti-black rant. Hogan was heard repeatedly using the N-word, talking about his disgust at his daughter potentially dating a black man and admitting, point blank, "I am a racist," to a point. Later reports said he used homophobic slurs on the tape, too.
The fallout from WWE was immediate and severe.
Total erasure. WWE terminated his contract instantly, wiped almost all references to him from their website, removed him from the Hall of Fame online, stopped Mattel from making his figures. Retailers like Target, Walmart pulled his merchandise. He was just gone overnight from the company he built.
What was the reaction from the African-American wrestling community? It sounds like it was complex.
Deeply complex, yeah, and very emotional. On one side, some older black peers like Virgil, Dennis Rodman, maybe Kamala came out saying they had good personal experiences with him and didn't believe he was truly racist deep down. But the reaction from many current black wrestlers was very different.
You mean guys like Mark Henry, Titus O'Neil, The New Day? What was their take?
They expressed profound offense, obviously, but also deep skepticism about his apology later on. WWE eventually reinstated him into the Hall of Fame in 2018. When Hogan gave an apology to the wrestlers backstage, many felt he completely missed the mark.
How so? What was wrong with the apology?
According to reports from people who were there, Hogan focused the apology almost entirely on warning the wrestlers about being careful, about being recorded without their consent. He emphasized the illegal taping aspect.
Instead of the racist comments themselves.
Exactly. Mark Henry, Titus O'Neil, others publicly said they were disappointed because he seemed more concerned about the privacy invasion than genuinely addressing the hateful things he'd said. It made the apology feel insincere, calculated to a lot of people. That distrust lingered.
Okay, let's shift to the end of his life. The physical toll his career took was just immense leading up to his death.
The cost of being Hulk Hogan for 30-plus years was brutal. Constant back problems, knee replacements, hip replacements. Sources say over 25 major medical procedures in his life. His health struggles became public in 2013 when he sued that Laser Spine Institute for $50 million, claiming they did a bunch of unnecessary surgeries that actually made his back worse.
And that final surgery in 2025 had devastating consequences.
It did. May 2025, he had this major neck surgery, a 4-level fusion. And tragically, during the operation, his phrenic nerve got severed. That's the nerve that controls your diaphragm, essential for breathing. Friends like Eric Bischoff said they noticed a really sharp decline in his health after that. Said Hogan sounded weak, was embarrassed about how frail he was becoming.
And he passed away just a couple of months after that surgery.
Died at home in Clearwater, Florida, July 24th, 2025. He was 71. The official cause was listed as a heart attack, acute myocardial infarction, but later medical records revealed he'd also been secretly battling chronic lymphocytic leukemia and atrial fibrillation. Just shows how much he was dealing with health-wise that wasn't public.
His funeral drew huge names, reflecting his status, but there was one very notable absence.
Yeah, the turnout was big. Vince McMahon, Triple H, Ric Flair, Dennis Rodman, Kid Rock, Stallone, all there. Showed his reach across entertainment. But his daughter, Brooke Hogan, they'd been estranged since 2023 apparently, and she did not attend the funeral. That was significant.
Despite all the controversy, the persona of Hulk Hogan still looms large, especially in Florida.
Oh, definitely. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis declared August 1st Hulk Hogan Day. That tells you something about the enduring power of the celebrity image. And tributes came from everywhere in wrestling, WWE, TNA, and JPW. Even AEW acknowledged his massive significance in building the business.
So, wrapping this up, we've gone through the whole story, from the brutal start with Mitsuda, the absolute peak of Hulkamania at WrestleMania 3, the shocking woe turn, right through the Gawker scandal and his final fragile health. We're left with this huge paradox, aren't we? The ultimate all-American hero versus this deeply flawed, controversial man.
It really forces you to grapple with celebrity mythology versus human reality. That Dave Meltzer quote just nails the professional side. You can't possibly overrate his significance. Sold more tickets than any man who ever lived. That's the undeniable business truth,
Right.
but it exists right alongside the personal shortcomings, the backstage politics, the failed businesses, and those really damaging controversies, especially the racism. The persona was presented as flawless. The man was incredibly complex, often contradictory.
And it makes you think about who's left to manage that legacy now, this massive conflicting brand.
Well, we saw others tied into it before, like his nephew Horace Hogan helping him win that match against Warrior back in '98. But now, symbolically, his son, Nick Hogan, inherited the estate. And maybe most tellingly, Nick also stepped in as the commissioner of that new Real American Freestyle Wrestling promotion his dad started.
Which sets up a really interesting final thought for you, the listener. Think about the challenge of inheriting a legacy that's equally defined by incredible success and incredible scandal. What does managing Hulkamania, a brand embodying both the best and, frankly, the worst of wrestling's excesses, tell us about celebrity myth versus family reality? The showman is gone, but the contradictions, the brand, the estate, they live on. And now the next generation has to figure out how to navigate that impossible inheritance.